All right, let's talk about one problem on page U. Wow, they throw a lot at us in this section of the PACE. And I don't know, I think it's a little confusing. They're talking about logarithms and anti-logs, and you haven't, if you're working through Algebra 2 right now, you haven't even gotten to that in the PACEs. So this, I would think, would be rather confusing for most chemistry students. So don't feel alone, and honestly, I don't know why they throw this at us, because there's a lot of the concepts covered here we don't really need to use and totally understand logs and anti-logs, but I'm going to give you a secret. If you have a calculator, okay, almost every calculator has a button, log, and if you do shift log, then that is the anti-log. And they talk about, thankfully, they talk about in the PACE a way to use the calculator to do that, and that is a lot simpler, all right? So we'll get to that in another problem, I think, coming up later on page U. But let's first do this one where we're asked to calculate the normality, okay? So there's problem 62 and 63, both of them we have to do normality. Remember from your reading that normality is kind of like molarity. So molarity was the number of moles per liter of solution. Normality would be the number of equivalents per mole of solution. So in the magic triangle here, normality is equivalence divided by liters of solution. So sometimes the equivalence is, like if it's H2SO4, we actually have 2 moles of hydrogen for every 1 mole of H2SO4. So to find the equivalence, we would have to multiply 2 times the number of moles for this particular acid. So we'll go through this one in a minute, then you divide and you get the, by the liters, and you get the normality. Okay, concentration, we'll talk about that when we get to problem 64. And then pH, and you remember reading about this earlier in the PACE, that from 1 up through 6.9 are acids, 7 is neutral, and then from 7.1 up to 14 are the bases. But those numbers actually come from the concentration of either hydronium, H3O, or the concentration of hydroxide, OH ions. So the PACE talks about that. It's a little confusing. Don't feel frustrated if you totally don't get it, okay? There's really only a couple of problems that we're going to do for homework, maybe one on the checkup, very little on the self-test, PACE test. You don't have to totally understand this in order to pass this PACE, okay? But I do want you to try to grapple with it, try to get your head around it. Let's talk about this one. Figuring out the normality. So first of all, we have to figure out, well, how many grams of H2SO4 are in 1 mole? And the answer is 98. I'll let you figure it out exactly. It's 98 point something, but we add up 2 hydrogens, 1 sulfur, 4 oxygens, add them all up, and let's say it comes out to 98, okay? Now, in H2SO4, we actually have 2 moles because it's H2SO4. Let's first figure out how many moles do I have. All right, I have 195 grams of H2SO4, and there are 98 grams per mole. So how many moles would that be? I mean, roughly it looks like it's going to be almost 2, you know. But let's get out our handy dandy calculators, do 190, whoops, I did 198, sorry. 190, did it again, 195 divided by 98, 1.99, yeah, that's pretty close to 2. 1.99 moles, all right. So, now that would be if I only had, that would be how many, that I could figure out the molarity then, okay? By taking that and dividing by the 6.2. But the equivalence is I actually have to take that times 2 because every mole produces 2 moles of hydrogen, or 2 equivalents per mole. So I'm going to take the that times 2, get 3.9, I get 3.98, all right? So 3.98 is the number of equivalents. And then I'm going to divide by the number of liters, which is the 6.2, all right? And I'm not going to finish this one for you. I'm going to let you do that one, and I'm just going to take a sneak peek here and make sure I got the answer right. Oh, all right. Did you catch my mistake? I'm looking at the score key and saying, how come my answer is not matching up? And I'm doing this live on camera. All right. Maybe you've done this too. I copied the 6.2 from problem 62. It's supposed to be 2.25 liters. Okay, that would make the answer different. There we go. All right. Now I'll let you finish the problem, okay? Now you know I'm a human. I make mistakes too. I looked at the wrong number of liters. I'm looking at the wrong problem. All right, now finish this problem and you should have the answer to 64.